It's time for a new edition of the Blue White Illustrated Penn State Recruiting Podcast. He's Ryan Snyder. I'm Greg Pickel. We're recording at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, November 23rd. There's a very good reason we've told you that here to kick off this week's edition because, as you all know, the Penn State Board of Trustees Committee on Compensation is meeting at 3:45 p.m. on Tuesday. Many expect that could have to do with a contract extension or a new deal or something that would cement James Franklin's future and Penn State's future together. But we don't know, as Ryan and I sit here and record this on, again, 10 o'clock, 10:15 on Tuesday, November 23rd. So, Ryan, good morning, buddy. Good to be on here with you. And we just wanted to get that quick programming note out of the way because many people are probably tuning into this and going to wonder either A, what info we do have on that, or B, why we aren't discussing what info that may already be out there by the time you get to listen. So let's just start there.
Yeah, big day, right? I mean, after
it could be, yeah. Yep.
7, I think it's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like it's been about 2 months of wondering what'll happen there, and then an extension of that is what would happen then with the class of 2022. So
right.
I haven't spoken with too many recruits about just their general reactions yet. You know, we will get that when the news kind of becomes official. But I would say that over the last week or two, there definitely feels like something has switched. You know, there were definitely a time in October where I think guys were maybe not openly publicly, I guess, talking about being worried about it, but
right.
Behind the scenes, I think there definitely was, or at least maybe talking to their parents, I kind of got that impression. But definitely something switched over the last couple of weeks. They do Zooms every other week as a class, so it wouldn't kind of surprise me if something happened there last week. I don't know exactly for sure, but I just know that as a group, they do that every couple of weeks, and again, it just over the last 10 days or so, it feels like something really kind of switched there. So that's good news for, I think, Penn State fans. That's good news for this class of 22 because it's one of the best in the country. And we'll get into that a little bit here with the updated On3 rankings and, where they kind of sit at the moment. But it's a stacked class no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, and a few of those guys still competing for state titles in their respective states. One other big name who we're going to talk about here in a minute knocked out of the playoffs but took his team, I believe, to record heights in 2021 prior to his arrival at Penn State. So just one more programming note. Again, we're recording this early, so if you're thinking that you could skip ahead maybe and miss some of the recruiting talk and try and find a James Franklin or Penn State nugget about talks and rumors and things like that, deeper into this podcast, you're unfortunately going to be disappointed. But the good news is, visit us at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for the latest Penn State football and recruiting news, and we will have video reaction later to whatever happens here on Tuesday at YouTube.com/BlueWhiteIllustrated, also in podcast form, wherever you get your audio, just like where you may be listening to this episode. Okay, so Ryan tipped the next part of the show here, and that's the release of the first update to from the fall to the On300. So that came out on Monday. Penn State has numerous commitments from the class of 2022 in the On300. Let's start with the highest ranked one, Ryan. You just saw him play recently. He's a 5-star, Drew Allar. He was previously number 21 in the rankings for On3. Now he's up to number 11. And I do actually want to take one quick detour here before we get into Drew, because this is important, I think. People have been hitting us up on the Lions Den board and also on social media and even some via text and other things about, well, when I look at the On3 rankings, Penn State doesn't have any 5-stars. Why won't they update the rankings? And just explain real quick why that is the case. When you go to On3, when you come to Blue White Illustrated, you pull down the recruiting tab, you go to the team rankings, you're going to see something that's not necessarily in line with what On3 rankings are, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, well, so with 247, of course, started by Shannon Terry, who has now started On3. Their team rankings. Do they have a composite team rankings and a normal team rankings? I should double check on that before I run my mouth. But long story short, ours are just composite. Okay, it will always be whatever you owe.
Consensus.
Yes.
Consensus
am I saying composite? Yes, right. I'm mixing it up with 247. The consensus, correct. So ours will always be, all 4 of the major sites combined. So it will always be ESPN.
Equally weighted. Yep.
And equally weighted. Rivals, 247, and On3. So when our updated rankings came out yesterday, it only changes the rankings by 25%, and that's big. That's a major shift from how they did it with 247 and now how they're doing it with us. Of course, when you add an extra service, it kind of makes it easier to split them all 25%. So that kind of makes sense. But when you look at our team rankings, you will see 0 5-stars, and you'll see 16 4-stars, which is actually really good. But that is just how the consensus ranking works. So with the On300, now that is just the specific On3 rankings, and that's how our staff, led by Charles Power, who we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago, that's just how they're ranking it. So I think it's going to take time, maybe for some people to kind of get used to that. I think we're going to have questions about that, Greg, probably going well into 2023. It'll take time, just like it took time for people to understand with 247 previously in the composite and how that all worked. So, but yeah, you'll see 0 5-stars, 16 4-stars, and 6 3-star players when you pull up the team rankings. But always just remember that is the combination of all 4 sites, and that's how we will always rank them. Because we feel like that is the best way to really get a feel for just how this class is viewed overall. So one other thing too, of course, with our rankings is that they are weighted by the overall number of commitments across the country, which is right now 15. That is the average of all the. I think it's not just Power 5 schools, but it's really all the schools. I think our rankings go down to they go beyond 50. But just keep that in mind. And that's why Penn State's number 8 because. Right now, if you were to weigh all these other rankings too, and not just look at who has the most commitments, Penn State would pretty much be on pace to finish number 8. So that's why we have it like that. I think this will be a great way to kind of give Penn State fans a real feel for where this class is projected to finish, and not where it stands right now. Anybody who followed us with Rivals all those years, and especially throughout the spring, knows that the way that system's set up, it's just kind of however many commitments you have. If you have more points than everybody else, you're gonna rise to the top, and this kind of weighs that from happening and gives, again, a more accurate feel for where we project them to finish. We've always thought 6, 7, 8 would be where Penn State is kind of projected this year, and that's exactly how this is playing out.
Penn State number 8 in the On3 consensus team rankings as of Tuesday morning. Let's get into the On300, Ryan. And Drew Allar leads the way, of course. Again, number 21, previously number 11 in the update. He is a 5-star according to On3 ranking team. You just saw him play recently. What impressed you about him the second time now seeing him? His Medina team, again, went to the regional semifinals. I believe it was the first time they've ever done that as
They
a
made it to the
program.
finals.
The finals.
Yeah, so this was the finals.
Yes,
yeah,
go ahead.
They won the semis
against.
against St. Ignatius, I believe. And then they were playing St. Edward. This was their third time playing St. Edward in the last couple years, and it didn't fare well for them. Drew would be the first to tell you that. I think the final score was 41-6, I believe, something like that. And it's no fault of Drew Allar's. I mean, I'll have highlights from this specific game up a little. Actually, they're up now. If you're an On3 member, and the main takeaway from this game was just that his offensive line couldn't handle St. Edward, which is an all-star team. I mean, they pull from 8 or 9 different counties throughout Cleveland. This is similar to the St. Joseph's Preps that you see down in Philadelphia. And we kind of knew that was going to be an issue, but for a major public school to go up against these all-star Catholic teams, this is just something that you see all across the country. But for Drew's career, man, I learned he finished more than 9,000 yards passing, which is incredibly impressive. And I learned a little bit more. I did an interview with Larry Laird, his head coach, this past week. Drew was a freshman. So when Drew was a freshman, I learned he didn't even start on the freshman team. He actually split times, which is kind of wild, man. When you see 5-star players and the very best, those guys, they come in right away and make a major impact, and that was far from the case with Drew Allar. So I just thought that was really interesting. He finished the year with 4,500 yards passing, or just a little under that, 48 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, incredible stats. But I really just think, and Coach Laird really hit on this, on his rise is just something that we don't really see. You don't see a guy go from 3 stars in the beginning of January all the way up to the number 1 quarterback in 11 months. And some of that has to do with the pandemic, but I think a lot of that has to do with just how much commitment, how much time he's put in. One thing that his coach really hit on was that, he does 5 hours just with coach in the off season of film. And that's incredibly, and that's 5 hours a week. And he does more than with his dad at home. So I think that's just and speaks really, really highly of just kind of how committed he is to
Yeah.
improving his game. And you see that. And we really saw that on Friday night. He was under pressure the entire night. He was sacked 6 times. He was probably hurried, I don't know, probably about a dozen or more. It was tough for him to really, look down the field. But man, he when he gets the opportunity, to get 3, 4, 5 seconds, he's excellent at just finding his third read, sometimes finding his fourth read. Man, in this offense, they put five wide receivers out there regularly. So I think he had a hell of a career, man. Obviously his rise up to a 5-star is just something you're never really going to see. I can't remember the last time we saw a player go from a mid-range 3-star. And granted, On3 wasn't around back in January, but when you look at the other sites, to now the maybe not the consensus number 1 quarterback in the country, but he's like number 1 or number 2 when you look across all the big sites. So, and he's a hell of a kid off the field too, man. That's just one thing that really stands out to me about Drew. He's almost too polite, if that makes sense sometimes, man. He's just I don't have enough good things to say about him. Really, really happy for his whole career, and it sucks the way it ended, but it's you put in that work, man. This is what you get. So it's a great lesson for other guys to learn.
So Drew Allar again, On3's number 1 quarterback, number 11 nationally. And I think it says a whole heck of a lot about Mike Yurcich's evaluation abilities that he singled out. Mm-hmm. Drew Allar pretty darn early on as the guy he wanted, I think, first at Texas and then now, of course, at Penn State. And they're able to get this done despite interest from Ohio State late, despite interest from a lot of Power 5 schools. So he is one of the 25 guys expected to sign with Penn State next month. Obviously, we got a ways to go. That all has to get buttoned up, but things looking good so far. Let's move on to Penn State's highest rated player in the class of 2022, according to the On3 rankings. It's Nick Singleton. He is number 20 in the On300. He was previously number 24. His Governor Mifflin team plays Exeter for, is it the district title this week, I believe? District 3 title?
Yep. Exeter and Joey Schlaffer. Yep.
Yes. So Class 5A District 3 title game set for Friday night, in Shillington, Pennsylvania. But Ryan, what do you make of this move? Obviously just a small bump for him, but he's also a 5-star in the On3 rankings.
Yeah, he moves up 4 spots, but On3 was always going to progressively kind of add 5 stars, and that's kind of what happened here. He moved up a little bit, but I always expected him and Drew to be 5 stars. That was always just kind of a matter of time. But dude, 2,000 yards, 42 touchdowns in 10 games. Obviously, they do kind of run a. I guess it's not really an option, but they're incredibly run heavy team. So the stats speak for themselves. But I mean, God, he's averaging 12 yards a carry or something like that. And it's just because he can do it every way, man. He has the speed, he has the power, and he has the vision too. And that's something we're really starting to see, I think, from watching him more. The one thing I think, I don't want to call it a knock, but the one thing he could have improved on, at least in the beginning of the year, was really just following his blockers and not just being a bulldozer, but letting your tight end get one, let your tackle hit one, and then you get in the open field.
Because when you're that talented and you're really so much better than a lot of the teams you're playing, I think it would have to be almost extremely challenging, if not impossible, to develop that level of patience when you don't really need it. But I'm sure that'll be one thing they'll want him to showcase at the next level, no question.
But you have to, because that's not going to be the case next year. You know what I mean? So now's the perfect time to learn it. And I think you're just seeing that more when you watch his film. I'm hoping to go out and see him play Friday. I already attended this exact game earlier in the year. It was a big win for Governor Mifflin, and I love Joey and Exeter, but it's going to be hard for them to get the upset here. I think Governor Mifflin is maybe, if they're not the best team in the state, they're absolutely the best team in 5A, and they should be getting Hershey this year. But I mean, look, again, Singleton has everything. It's the power, it's the speed, it's the vision. And that's why he's the number 1 back. And we were talking to Charles Power. One thing Charles really likes about both these guys is that they're getting better. Like, there's so many times where, we get to junior year and guys are kind of cemented in the rankings, and, their progress as a senior doesn't weigh as much into these rankings as they probably should. It's more so what they did as sophomores and juniors. And we're really seeing, both of these guys climb up and just get even better. And as Charles was saying to me in an interview yesterday, that's a sure sign that they really like, at least our On3 director, that these guys are going to be legit at the next level. So I don't know. I've talked about Nick how many times. I don't know how much else I can say about his potential. But him, Drew, and Nittany. When you look at these next rankings, I know we're going to get Nittany now.
Yep, number 37 in the latest On300 was number 39 before.
Yeah, I mean those three are clearly the top guys in this class, and it's a good little margin between them and the rest of everybody in the On3 rankings.
Yes, so those three guys are top 40, and the next one that we'll get to here in a sec is 173. So yeah, quite the big difference there. Let me just transition real quick on Nittany. What do you make of the fact that even though he was injured and didn't play as much of his senior year as he would have liked, that he's still rated and ranked the way he is? And do you think he'd possibly be higher if he had a full season, or is this about right for him, no matter what?
I feel it's pretty much correct. And the one reason, I think the one difference kind of between Rivals and On3 is I think in On3 we're going to put a little more stock into measurables and what you do 40 and testing times. And I know obviously Rivals has a camp and they put a lot of stock into that, but to me I just get the impression from talking to Charles and the guys here that 40 times and shuttle times and things of that sort are going to have a little bit of an impact. And that's one area where Nittany can genuinely improve. He's never been much of a blazer, he's incredibly powerful and he's a smart player. Those are the two things that, I think really stand out about Nittany. But as far as running guys down from the backside, things of that sort, that's never really been his strength. I believe he ran, I'm trying to look it up now. Yeah, he ran a 4.9740. And now that was at the Under Armour Baltimore camp, which had a crazy headwind. Like every 40 we saw that day was pretty slow. So he's probably a little bit better than that. 29-inch vertical, that's pretty good for someone at 255. But again, he's just a really technical player and a smart player, which is awesome. But the one area where he can improve, compared to some other guys in this class, is just those measurables that, and that's what's great about him going to Penn State. Working with Dwight Galt, who's been, I think one of the best trainers in the country when it comes to really making guys stand out at the combine and whatnot. That should really, I think, only help his progression. But to me, Nittany's pretty much where he should be, because you look at some of the other edge rushers in this class and they just have some freaky numbers, and that's to me, I think that's really the difference on why he's number 37 and not a 5-star like some other guys.
Moving along here, let's round out the top 5 with a 1-2 punch. Abdul Carter, another PA prospect who's committed in this class. He drops one spot from 172 to 173. Then you have Cam Miller, who dropped from 194 to 163. Corner who played mostly quarterback as a senior, which I think probably plays as much of a role in that as anything. But go ahead on Carter and Miller.
He played a lot of cornerback at Fernandina Beads, and I don't believe Cam started as a quarterback this year, but then he started playing more of it throughout the year.
You are correct. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
But
yep.
I mean, Cam's season's been incredible. I believe Cam got a concussion halfway. Okay, one, Cam doesn't talk, right? Like we've talked about this a lot of times. It's been hard to read. Trinity Christian isn't a school that is very open to doing a bunch of media interviews and whatnot. So he's been hard to follow. I can follow from a distance. I believe he got a concussion earlier this year. It had him out for a couple games, and then just his highlights are just not updated regularly too, so it's just kind of hard to follow exactly where he's been playing. But Cam put up some really impressive numbers at a couple camps, and that's a big reason why he is ranked as highly as he is at On3. And Abdul Carter, I've talked about him a bunch of times. Running his 4.5, 4.5 shuttle, or no 4.5 40 and a 4.4 shuttle. That's what, again, I think On3 is going to be really high on these kind of measurable situations. And, obviously we're watching film and guys are standing out, but, the guys that put up the freaky numbers, that's going to help them. And to be completely honest, I feel like that really aligns with how Penn State does things too. I mean, Penn State is very heavy on coming to camp, putting up awesome numbers, and then boom, you're going to rise into somebody they seriously consider. Abdul Carter is the perfect example of it. I mean, he was they liked him in the beginning, then they kind of dropped off a little bit on Abdul. And then, man, when he came to camp and put up those numbers that he did, I think he had like a 30-foot broad jump too, which shows explosion. That's when Abdul became, one of Penn State's top true linebacker targets. So I think that's a major reason why he's ranked as highly as he is. And then Cam Miller, I didn't hit on his time, but he had a 4.2 shuttle and a 4.5 40, and this was at a camp I think 2 years ago. I believe this was 2019, and guys are always progressing and getting better. So I wouldn't surprise me if he's running, high 4.4s now. And his shuttle time was always pretty legit. So again, I think measurables play a big part in On3, and I think that's why you're seeing these guys as high as they are compared to some other rankings.
We're halfway through this edition of the Blue White Illustrated Penn State Recruiting Podcast. We're also halfway through 5 of the 10 players that are committed to Penn State in the class of 2022 who are ranked in the latest On300. You can find that, of course, at on3.com. Find us at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Ryan, let's just go through the final 5 here, and you can kind of take this whatever direction you want. It includes 2 players who were previously unranked. Katron Allen is up to the number 200 player in the country. KJ Winston from DeMatha, Maryland, was previously unranked. He's now 280. And between those two, you have Drew Shelton at 224, Caden Saunders at 231, and Jerry Cross at 266. Those 3 all droppers from where they were before.
Yeah, there's one guy that stands out there, right? It's got to be Caden Saunders. And this is what I wrote on the board yesterday. I definitely believe that's too low. And he's going to be a guy that I talked to Charles about a good bit, I think. And look, our guys can't possibly evaluate everybody in person. And I feel like Caden's senior season film, where he didn't have a what I would consider a top-notch quarterback. I mean, he had to play quarterback most of the year, from what I've gathered. Playing a lot of Wildcat. It's limited in the routes he got to run and whatnot. And I feel like that played a major part in this happening. So, with him going to the Under Armour game here in about a month and a half, I know our guys are going to be there. They're going to be at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio too, and I feel like that's going to be his opportunity to kind of show On3 that they may have gotten this ranking wrong. I do feel like Caden Saunders, to me, he's absolutely a top 150 prospect. And, when we were with Rivals, I was really pushing for him to be a top 100 prospect. So I still kind of feel that, that's his ceiling to me. I was pushing for him to be a top 10 quarterback or a top 10 wide receiver in the country before we made this switch. So I still feel like that way. I mean, he ran a 4.40. He has a 4.1 shuttle, which is incredibly, shows incredible burst. Broad jump was 110 inches. I forget what that equals in feet, but I know he, I think it was like 28 or something like that. It was a pretty good number. So, Caden, to me, man, he's one of those guys you got to see in person. And I got to see him in Atlanta. I had a camp this year. And, that's where I was sold that, oh, okay, we're sleeping on this guy a little bit. So, but Katron Allen and KJ, I'll hit on them quick. Katron not being ranked originally was always a little bit of a head scratcher. But his IMG film, the one thing about IMG is you can watch all their games on YouTube. So they were able to get a really good watch at all of his tape this year, the good and the bad. And, he's certainly been putting up great numbers. He's another guy it's kind of hard to track down stats for or whatnot, but we talked about this the other week on the podcast. Like every time we do get numbers and information on him, he's crushing it. So, Katron's, he's definitely more of a bruiser. I think he had a 4.65 40 at one of the camps a year or two ago. But he also had like a 4.2 shuttle, which is really good numbers. So, I think he was kind of due. I was kind of surprised he wasn't in the ranking. So 200 makes sense to me there. And KJ Winston was somebody I wrote about, back in August, as somebody who I felt deserved to be a 4-star. I felt like he was underrated at the time, and he's absolutely gone out and proved that. And KJ's another guy who can improve measurables, and I think that's why he's ranked where he's at towards the bottom of the 300 instead of a little bit higher. He was another one who came to that Baltimore Under Armour camp, and he ran a 4.8 40 that day, which I know fans are probably like, oh, that sounds slow. But again, I can't stress enough, like that headwind that these guys ran into that day just messed up everything. I mean, the numbers, I really shouldn't even probably be sharing those numbers because everybody was at least a tenth, probably more like 2/10 slower than what they really were. So to me, I think that number should probably be probably like a high 4.6, something like that. But everything else checks out with him. He has I think a 31-inch vertical. There's a lot of other things. And then when you watch his film this year, and he was the best player at DeMatha. DeMatha is a stacked team. I mean, he was consistently on offense and defense the guy who made a difference for them. So I think he absolutely deserves to be a 4-star. And Penn State has, is it 12? I think it's more than that. I forget what their actual 4-star number is. I think it's 12 or 13 total 4-stars. Guys who are outside. No, let me think here. I think it's 14 because we have 10 inside the On300. There's Mekhi Flowers, Anthony Ivy, Jerry Cross, and Tyler Johnson. So that's 14, guys with 4-star ratings at On3, which I think is pretty good. And I think if you got to ask Penn State's coaches about it, which we will come signing day, I think they'll agree that that's pretty accurate to what their board is.
All right. Well, 10 Penn State players in the new On300 consensus, which was just updated. I'm sorry, the On300 just updated the On3 consensus team rankings. We'll get all this straight, I promise. Penn State is number 8 at this point in time. All right, Ryan, let's move on to, and you can all, again, check that all out, BlueWireIllustrated.com and On3.com. Let's move on to the Rutgers game. Penn State's final home game of the season brought visitors to town for one last time on a game day. It's been a pretty interesting year. On a different episode, we're going to eventually take a look back at kind of all the highs and lows and everything else that went into Penn State's first chance to host prospects for games since 2019. But let's just move through the Rutgers situation here quick. Noon kick, not great for visitors. Rutgers, not great for visitors. November, not always great for visitors. So let's just run through here quick how things worked out for Penn State on a day where they win 28-0.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely I think the smallest recruiting list of the year. I wasn't at. Actually, if I go back to Villanova, it's probably comparable to that. Of course, I was watching Nittany that day. You were there for that, but obviously we have the list. I'll just have to pull it up. But this was definitely when it comes to scholarship guys, certainly one of the smaller crowds. But there were a few key guys added that I didn't have on the list of originally. Excuse me. One of the big guys, of course, was Dakari Nelson out of Selma, Alabama. I was told he drove to Penn State.
From Alabama?
He drove. I mean, that's from Alabama with multiple children. I think he has a couple younger siblings. And
well, I mean, if that doesn't indicate his interest, what the?
Well, that's why. Yeah, I was shocked, man. I was talking to some people about it. I haven't talked to Dakari about it, but I was told he drove. I mean, that's a 28-hour round trip, man, to watch Penn State play Rutgers.
I didn't like driving home from Columbus, alone from Alabama State College for Penn State Rutgers. Whew.
Yeah, I didn't like driving back from Cleveland the other night to watch Drew. That was 3.5. So I mean, it was just that really stands out to me. I think Auburn is probably the main team to watch with him. They're pushing hard. He's visited a couple of times, but yeah, I think that really speaks to his interest in Penn State. And this was somebody they've been working on hard to get up here. So he's a safety prospect, 6'3", 194, again, from Selma, Alabama. So that was a really good addition to the list and somebody that I think we're going to be talking about more. And when I was speaking with sources, I guess you say, to work on my offers board, which we're gonna finish the defensive backs here this week. This was somebody they really hit on. Is we have a really good relationship with him. We have to get him on campus, and then. Sure enough, a couple of days later, he shows up. He was actually expected for the Michigan game and was unable to make it. So, just a good sign for Penn State there with a player from Alabama who right now is number 163 in the On3 consensus. So, just a couple other guys quick. We'll mention Sam Pendleton. He ended up getting an offer. I think he's going to be a guard, 6'4", 285 from North Carolina. Ty Howes really is kind of his main recruiter right now, and I don't get the sense that they've been talking for a long time, but I know he had a good chat with the staff when he was up here this past weekend. And right now, I think NC State and Michigan are probably going to be Penn State's top competitors there. He's actually going to Michigan this upcoming weekend for the Ohio State game and was at NC State a couple times already. He had a lot of good things to say. It really just the amount of time that Penn State put into meeting with him and his family before the game. And I don't get the sense a lot of other schools do that, because whenever I speak with these guys, man, they really rave about how much time Penn State gives to them, 2-3 hours before a game. So I think that's really interesting. And then one other guy we got to mention here is Kamar Archie. He's a 2025 player. Okay. Yeah, I know. 2025. Long way to go. He originally was 2024, and then he reclassified when he went to the Hun school. He's originally from Trenton, New Jersey, 6'1", 195, probably a linebacker the next level. He was also up this past weekend. For a 2025 player, he's already got a handful of really nice offers. West Virginia, Rutgers is also in there, Boston College, Illinois. And again, we're talking about a really young kind of player. But this is someone who Penn State's going to be recruiting hard in the upcoming years. And I believe this was his first time on campus. So another solid, a couple handful of guys. This was a really heavy walk-on list. So it's kind of what you expect for Rutgers at noon. I don't know how else to spin it.
Right. Well, still, you get guys on campus, you never know what it could lead to down the road, be it walk-ons, be it scholarship guys, what have you. So, Ryan, any final thoughts here? Let me hit you with this, mostly so I can roll the clips and let my dog out of the room we're recording this. Bo Perbola, not in the On300, but he was at Rutgers. Any final thoughts on that? We'll go out on that note.
I love Bo. I don't know what else I can say. I've been talking about Bo for a long time. He's a 3-star with On3. I think he's one of the smartest quarterbacks I've been able to watch over the years. He doesn't have the cannon that Drew Allar has, but he makes incredibly smart decisions. He can run the ball a little bit better, although I watched Drew make some really impressive runs the other night too. But, it sucks that Bo got knocked out of the playoffs the other week, and I was really hoping to kind of see him get to the District 3 championship. I think they would have really given Harrisburg a good name or a good game, but it is what it is, man. But he had a hell of a career. He's going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks in Central PA's history, probably the best player ever from York County. And I think if anybody's overlooking him for this quarterback competition in the years to come, which we now definitely need to include Christian Veilleux in, by the way. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were skipping him the last couple of months.
Not doing that
anymore. That young man made a great first impression. And I'm happy for Christian too, man. He's an awesome kid. Penn State has an awesome quarterback room coming up. Like, just cool cats. Like really good guys. They're going to be excellent leaders, and they can zip it too. So we'll leave it at that.
He's Ryan Snyder. I'm Greg Pickel, and this has been another edition of the Blue White Illustrated Penn State Recruiting Podcast. Visit us, bluewhiteillustrated.com, for all the latest Penn State news and notes. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/bluewhiteillustrated, and find us wherever you get your audio. We will see you next time.